Hello and welcome to TVOL, where we talk about tactics and their evolution. Today we're going to be focusing on the tactical approach of Ralf Rangnick. And in particular, we're going to be discussing the role of Ronaldo within Rangnick's system. We're going to take a look at a recent match between Newcastle United and Manchester United. Before we go into the match itself, we're going to be taking a look at the PreMatch Context, which is some data to set the scene. And what we're going to look at now is some data on the extent to which Manchester United press the opposition that they're playing against. Looking at two things here over time, taking into account the current season and the previous two. The blue line is showing, measuring how much pressure Manchester United apply to their opponents when they are on the ball overall. This is measured per opposition touch, because of course in some matches they would press a lot, say against Manchester City because they don't have the ball. In some matches they have the majority of the possession, where they're less able to press the ball, of course. So what we do is we look at overall pressure, but per opposition touch. So the blue line is the overall amount of pressure that Manchester United are applying to the ball. It increased over the course of last season, where in the end, of course, they finished second. It decreased in the early part of this season and slightly increased, as you can see in the uptick in the blue line to the far right-hand side, coinciding with Carrick's interim role and Rangnick's interim role until probably the end of the season. The orange line, in contrast, is delving in a little bit deeper. This is looking at the extent to which Manchester United are applying pressure in the opponent's defensive third. And you can see that in general follows a similar trajectory, a similar path to the blue line, but interestingly it has not increased recently. So what we're looking at here is pressing and counter-pressing when the opposition is in their defensive third. The theory, which the manager Rangnick absolutely subscribes to if you listen to his interviews and what he said in the past and so on, much like, say, the approach of Jurgen Klopp, is that the most effective, sometimes they even say the most effective playmaker, is to win the ball high up towards the opposition's goal and then quickly turn that into a goal-scoring chance. So when we define this more aggressive form of pressing in the orange line rather than the blue line, which is just the amount of pressure overall, this is not really, it hasn't at all increased recently, and we'll just quickly zoom into that. So returning to the same data, but just highlighting that endpoint, just to make it really clear, overall pressure has increased in recent matches with Rangnick's arrival and Carrick for one game before that. When we look at this aggressive form of pressure, and you can see this reflected in his post-match comments, especially after the Newcastle game, he used the word physicality. What I think he was simply meaning is that the players, where they were potentially in good counter-pressing scenarios, I would say that they were doing two things incorrectly as far as what we presume his tactical instruction would be. One is that they weren't necessarily taking up the same positions to apply that counter pressure, and the other, just more simply, is they weren't doing enough and weren't applying enough effort. So now we're just really quickly going to take a look at the data, the stats coming from the match itself. Manchester United, as they tend to do, dominated possession, 67% versus 33% for Newcastle, so they had more of the ball. They had slightly better and more high quality chances, which is what is measured by expected goals, 1.7 versus 1.2. They could have easily lost the game right at the end. Yet again, De Gea reserving his best form for when Manchester United are not playing particularly well. The other thing that we'll look at just in a second is the extent to which overall Manchester United were applying pressure in this match versus Newcastle. And matching the data that we just saw, this is a measure of passes per defensive action. So how many passes do the team, in this case Man United, the answer is 5.6, how many passes do they allow the opposition to make before they attempt to make a tackle, pressure the ball, and so on. Newcastle were more passive in their approach, allowing Manchester United quite a lot of sequences of passes and quite a lot of possession in general, which we've just seen. Now we're going to jump into the match itself and take a look and explore some of the themes that we've already introduced in this video. Really early in the game, 1 minute 22 seconds in, Ronaldo is on the ball, attempting a back heel. We have an underlapping roll from Alex Telles, the left back in this particular match. The back heel goes astray. But that's not really the point that we're making here. The point is that Ronaldo really fails to put any effort in to win the ball back. We want to highlight a couple of things here. Number one, Ronaldo is standing still. United have lost the ball, the back heel went astray. Fred is very aggressively pushing towards the ball. And what this allows, partly through the inaction of Ronaldo, is that Newcastle are then able to play a quick ball down the line. What we're showing right here is Fred's ineffective distribution. So from a defensive point of view, he works very well within the system, but he gives the ball away here. He's trying to find Rashford, who would then maybe look for Fernandes. But Joe Linton, as was said in the match commentary, had an outstanding game playing in a deeper role. What he's able to do, because Manchester United have pushed up high and narrow, is that where they lose the ball and they fail to counter press or don't even try, as in many cases in this match, try to counter press, then they are really easy to play through from Newcastle's point of view on the counter attack. We can see now how that has progressed. Alan St-Maximin is able to charge down the left wing. United are in no sort of defensive structure. As you often see in these circumstances, they are desperately trying to run back towards their own goal to try and recover the situation. And in this sequence of play towards the left-hand side of Newcastle's defence, we have Ronaldo on the ball, attempting to win a free kick. But I would really question the positioning here. Either Dalot or perhaps even Varane would have to aggressively push up, because it's just really clear through this image what happens when United lose the ball. They just don't have the players in the right position to effectively counter-press. And indeed, that is what occurs. Joe Linton is able to push down the left-hand side of the field. He's able to pick out St-Maximin. He's able to take his time and do what he wants. Again, United desperate to recover the situation. We're going to pick on Ronaldo again. Fred makes a poor pass. He should be finding Ronaldo. Ronaldo makes a good run. That is what he excels at. But he is looking towards the sky, and he has no interest in trying to recover the situation. He sees it as someone else's fault. Regardless of whose fault it is or isn't, this results in De Gea tipping the ball past the post with a run right through the centre of the park through Jojo Shelby. The approach was effective, and they were following instructions in certain parts of the match. So here Fernandes is winning the ball back following a turnover in possession. We do have to recognise that the tactical approach changed with Sancho coming on and trying to find him in wide areas. But here we can see the United players being relatively passive. Fernandes has just lost the ball, 3 players doing not very much. Here's another example of United failing to counter-press collectively. They're not thinking about the space Ronaldo here if he loses the ball. And here's another example of just lack of effort in the context of counter-pressing. So they lose the ball, they look up towards the heavens in anguish. Another example of the space being left in behind. So United player on the ball, but no mechanism for protecting the space on the counter. And what happens there is 10 seconds later, United are torn apart on the break. Shelby running in to collect this pass through the centre of the field, and De Gea brings it out of the bag right at the end and prevents a defeat for United. The evolution of Manchester United's tactics right now with the arrival of Ralf Rangnick are particularly fascinating. This is something that we'll do 1 or 2 more videos on. And if you like this video, please express that like by hitting the like button. While you're there, you may as well subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.